Once was a lot to take in. Twice, it made people start to wonder. But now, man, countless times, countless acts of violence toward a specific group of people. Now, this is not about talk anymore, it's about change. But when we have a history of violence, that change may be a little harder for some of us to swallow. A pill that many of us may not be willing to take. The question then becomes, what does change look like? And how willing are we to take it? In this episode of the S.I.P show, we're going to discuss a controversial topic, one that's been talked about all across social media for the last couple weeks. I'm talking about the shooting death of Ahmaud Arbery and the video that has many outraged. Come with an open mind and join in the conversation.
What's going on? Hello and welcome to the S.I.P show. If you didn't know, I'm Damon Lodge. You can call me D Lodge, and I'm joining with my co-host. You know him as the Stitch Doc, Dr. Jeremy L. Blunt in the house. Hey, that's what we do, man. But go ahead and greet the people, brother.
That what's going on out there, all listening audience. Are you excited about today's show, bro?
Man, I'm super excited, man. I need to. I wish I had a seatbelt to keep me buckled in my seat because I'm just so excited. I'm about to just hop out of this thing. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, like you said, we got a special guest today, right? This guy is gonna come and bring a certain swag to the show. You know what I'm saying? Like this dude got more degrees than a black belt. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look at first, second degree black belts. This dude got all them things and degrees. But it's my brother from another mother, pastor. Doctor, you'll let her in the building.
They call him you.
Just like the soldier boy.
What's up?
Welcome to the show, man.
Yo. Man, thank you. It is an honor to be on. I appreciate both of y'all to just having me on and just to speak from a candid position. I appreciate
man,
it.
welcome to the show. We are so excited that you took time out of your schedule to be here with us and to join the conversation. So let's Damon, let's jump right in.
Just like we're saying, this are our opinions. This is what we came to a conclusion with. So it might not be the views of everybody else that's listening, but this is what we think. So we're gonna get to our initial thoughts of when we saw the shooting of Ahmaud Arbery. So my first initial thoughts was like, bro, I was mad because the only thing they showed was him running, getting into a confrontation with the guy with the shotgun, and then getting shot, and then that was it. So we didn't have no facts about it. We didn't have any data of any thoughts of before or after the situation happened. So, first thing I got is like, oh man, I'm mad. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's another black person being shot, killed in the streets, looked like for no reason, looked like he was just jogging. And I was like, shoot, that could have been me. That could have been you. Could have been our kids, friends, anybody jogging in the street. So that was my initial reaction, right? My initial thoughts. But when we get more of the facts of the actual story, we get to break down and see what we actually think that happened, right? And we still don't have all the facts. Stuff's coming out daily about this shooting. But just on my personal feelings, what I feel in my gut is that, these guys used the law to commit murder. They knew what the laws were and they knew what they can do and what they can get away with. So it's like, will they get convicted in a court of law? I'm going to say probably not, because it follows the laws that they have in Georgia right now. I know we're going to get to that a little bit later about the laws that they have and the laws that we have. But, if you don't know your laws, you don't know what you can be, what you can technically get away with, or what you can, what would get you prosecuted. So for me, that's how I'm feeling, that they knew what they can do and what they can get away with. And, and the second thing that I found out too, that he wasn't just jogging, right? He was already on these people's property, going inside a house that was being renovated. I know they got videos of that. And then You see him running from that residence. So that's where it catch up with him when he's running from that residence. Um, so when that happened, um, he was running from fleeing from the residence, and that's when the confrontation happened. So the confrontation happened with the McMichaels, and they had prior break-ins, prior things of people coming in their house. So when they came, and but they don't know if it was this guy or not. So they wanted to make a citizen arrest on him because they thought he was gonna, like the law was saying that he was committing a felony by going the intent of going in his property to actually steal something, right? So they have rights to where they can try to stop him now. And then that's when I think they use their knowledge of the law to commit murder. So that's my thoughts on it. Do you want to pass this to you, or you want to go next, sir?
I'm a round it out every time, so I'm gonna let you pass it to you, and then I'm gonna round that thing out. So, Yul, let's get your thoughts on that. What was your first initial thought when you saw the video of the shooting? What were
My
your
first,
initial
it took me honestly, it took me about a couple days to actually to watch it, because it was just, I'm to the point now I don't want to make black murder seem normal. And all of these videos make black murder, it kind of makes you numb to it. So it took me a couple days to even watch it, but when I eventually did see the actual video, it was it man, it disturbed me in a way that it just made it frustrating, made me mad. The first time I saw it, my initial emotion was anger.
Mm-hmm.
Just point blank, it was anger. And at the time, we were informed that he was jogging. So now I'm angry, and I'm at a point like we can't even run. So my initial thoughts was anger. Here we go again, another modern day lynching.
yes, I agree with you. I heard someone, a commentator, even state that's they called it the modern day lynching, and I was disturbed by that. Just the whole concept behind it, and I couldn't agree with you more when I say I believe we are at a pivotal point in our society, a seriously pivotal point, because we have to determine if this is going to be uh, if we're going to go along this and this go along with this and let this become a norm.
Right,
Or are we going to do something to bring about some kind of change, to change the course of time? Because if you look back at history, this has become a norm.
Mm-hmm.
And the sad part about it is, uh, I really don't believe, and I think we're going to go deeper into this as we talk, but I don't believe it has been meaningful enough for us yet.
yeah,
And sadly, it's only meaningful, I believe, for the ones that it happens to, that are directly connected to it.
right,
I'm disturbed by what transpired. I'm deeply not, and I kind of mentioned this at the last show, that originally I didn't watch the video before we broadcast and we talked about the fact that we were going to do a show about it. I heard a little bit about what was going on, and I watched here and there. I saw a very small clip of it, but I never really watched it, and I didn't do research. And last week we wanted to do a little research because we want to provide people with answers. We want to share them. Not just we want them to get the truth, but also for them to be informed about things. That's what the whole purpose of this show is. It's not just to get together and talk about it. Yes, an injustice happened. What are we going to do about it now? And
Mm-hmm.
a life was lost, but his is not the only life that has been lost. And I think it's something seriously going on in our society today, that if we don't pause, then the generations that come behind us are going to be forever changed. There's a lot of things we talk about our parents did and our grandparents did that we don't do anymore. Well, imagine that conversation for our grandkids based off of the way things are right now. That would be disturbing if you see somebody and you can just pick them off just because.
Yeah.
That's just is deeply moving and disturbing. So look, we want to give shout out to everybody that's tuning in with us. We want your feedback as well. Um, so you comment in the areas below about the topics and the questions that we bring up. We want to know, what was your first thought when you saw the video. Like I said, I saw it after, and I saw it from yes, it could have been me
Mm-hmm.
because I do a lot of jogging and I'm out on the road, and it could have been me just as easily as it was them. And we'll talk about it a little bit more in the show. There's more to the story, and unfortunately, even every day a little bit more is coming out, and sometimes we may not get the full story ever. Even when they go to court, they still may not have the full
Wow.
story of exactly what transpired that day.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's kind of my initial thoughts.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I think everybody had that first initial thought. We always kind of angry, like we can't believe this is happening still. But like I said, like I felt that is their knowledge of the law that's really going to allow them to get away from what they did. Not saying that it's not justified, not saying that they had a reason, not saying who's right or wrong, but I personally think because they knew the game and they knew the laws. Because the father, if I'm correct, he was like some type of DEA agent or something like that, or a prosecutor or something like that. So he knows the laws, right? So you think about that in our own state. Do we have like a stand your ground law? Do we have the right to make a citizen's arrest? You know what I'm saying? Like, do y'all know we have any of these type of laws in Louisiana that we don't know about? That'll be my question.
Well, I'm gonna jump in there and give you a chance to share. I did a little research because when we got to talking about this, I wanted to make sure people were informed of what is going on. There is a Louisiana law. Um, I'm gonna talk about two of them first. There is what is considered the citizen's arrest,
Hmm.
where it's a very controversial issue that only a couple states, Louisiana being one of them, and I can actually name all of the states um, that have where a citizens can arrest somebody: Texas,
Mm.
Arkansas, Kentucky, Massachusetts, Michigan, Nebraska, Ohio, South Carolina, Wyoming, and us, Louisiana.
Wow.
Those are the places where a citizen can make an arrest. Now, here's the key when you look at the law about making an arrest. They can make a citizen's arrest if they feel or if the person that they are arresting has committed a felony act, have committed a felony act. That's when they can make that arrest, or in the case of a burglary or robbery type situation in which they were present for the actual event transpiring.
Hmm.
So
Mm.
that's important to know. So that's the citizens arrest side. And then the other question, the big one that a lot of people are talking about, is what's called the justifiable homicide law. In other words, the stand your ground, like
Hmm.
Florida has. Louisiana actually has one.
Yep.
It is Louisiana Statute 1420, and it is defined as when committed for the purpose of preventing a violent or forcible felony involving danger to life or a great bodily harm by one who reasonably believes that such an offense is about to be committed and that such action is necessary for
Mm.
prevention. Now,
Mm.
here's what I'm going to do. I want to make sure that people are informed. So I'm going to put a link not just to that one, to that, but also there's another link that I came across that actually explains the stand your ground law, uh, so that people have a better understanding. Because I think one of the biggest things that hurts us is the fact that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know our rights. We don't know what people can do and what they can't do. So we end up being in a position where it hurts us, and folks take advantage of us because we don't know. You got anything to add to that?
No, that I mean, you sum that up. A lot of times, our downfall is our ignorance. So
Mm-hmm.
what you're basically saying to me is, if we're informed, we'll know how to protect ourselves against others, and also protect ourselves against others. So, you summed it up. That's great information.
Yeah. I, I had to step back and say, hey, what can we do now? There are. I was in the store the other day. I'm not gonna name what store it was. Yeah, I am. I was at Home Depot picking up some stuff, and somebody passed. This young lady passed by me with a weapon on her side. She didn't, it was holstered and everything, and um, because I kind of I pay attention to those kind of things. It was noticeable, but she the first thought in my mind was, can she have that? Well, a lot of people don't know that Louisiana has
Yeah.
you can open carry
Mm-hmm.
in Louisiana.
Yeah.
So as long as there's not a sign that is posted outside of the establishment that says that you can't go, and also certain places like schools that you're not allowed to carry those things in, as long as that's the case, then yes, you can carry. Now, in order to carry concealed, you actually have to get a license to carry a concealed weapon. So that's good information to know. And look, before we move on, we do have a question from one of y'all homeboys, Mr. William Johnson. He
Beamer.
wants to do the stand your ground work for us. Thank you for your question, William. One of y'all want to take a stab at it before I do?
Man, that's kind of
I definitely can.
you go.
Absolutely. There are situations where staying your ground do work for African Americans. I'm assuming you mean black people. So, yes, there are situations, there are cases that staying your ground do work for us. Now, throughout, if you talk from a history standpoint, of course, we know that we're often on the opposite side of standing your ground. Trayvon Martin comes to mind, right? That's another one that comes to mind. And a lot of times standing your ground don't necessarily mean they were standing their ground either. So we do know that this America has a history of always not benefiting us when it comes to laws. But I have seen situations where stand your ground does work for African American, usually against other African American. Now that's another topic though.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Damon?
Yeah, that was kind of leading to what we was going with next. Like, is there a double standard when it comes to these things? You know what I'm saying? Like, just because of my skin tone, will I be perceived different? If I was in Home Depot with my gun open carry, would people look at me strange? You know what I'm saying? Will people look at me crazy because I have my pistol on me? And like, we're both veterans. I love guns. I just got a new gun in today. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I love my weapons, and it's just me. And I just like everybody got the right to bear arms. I got my right to bear arms. So it's
You
I
know
think
we're
it
gonna
is.
discuss that offline, right?
Huh?
I say you know we're gonna discuss that offline, right?
I don't want to be Damon's enemy.
You know what I'm saying? But I think it's a double standard when it comes to those things. But you want the justice system to be able to have our back in these situations. You know what I'm saying? Like it's supposed to be we're innocent to proven guilty, right? So it's not like if you see me, I'm guilty just because I'm. You know what I'm saying? So is that a double standard when it comes to these things?
Hmm. You? What you think?
Yeah, as far as it being a double standard, right?
Yeah.
Uh huh.
I agree with that. I definitely do. I definitely see more cases in which African American people stand in their ground always get placed in jail as opposed to our Caucasian brothers and sisters. There's too many cases we can throw out there and say, hey, when an African American stands their ground, the name is leaving me, but I believe it's a lady from Florida who's currently serving jail time for standing her ground, and she was getting beat by a partner. She stood her ground and violently killed him, and she's still in jail for protecting herself. In the same state, we've seen Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin, and he got off. So I definitely agree with that. There is a double standard, and throughout history, we see that double standard often standing against Black people as opposed for them.
Okay, I agree. The double standard concept, I believe is so much. A large part of it, I think, has to do with knowledge and not knowing. You know, the people that do know are unfortunately and I'm gonna say it the way that it is. We don't cut no corners on this show. You know, all three of us are Black and African American, and we're males. Let me restate that. We're African American males.
Yeah.
And statistically, there are so many things, so many categories that puts us in.
Yeah.
That are not on the positive side. You know, getting pulled over and unfortunately, I gotta say it the way that it is. You know, we only get, you know, today's society, folks are not getting in an uproar unless one or two things have transpired. Either it's police brutality, or it's a white versus a Black person, or an African American person, and some kind of crime has been committed. And unfortunately, you know, that is a double standard in my book, not just for Black and white. It's in my book because it's human being versus human being at the end of the day. And unless we get to that place, then everything else is a double standard, regardless of who it is. Because honestly, I know quite a few other foreigners of other descents that they feel like they are discriminated against as well, and they're discriminated against by everybody else. So yeah, that's there is a double standard that is out there, and so let me throw this question out there: should we be mad that the prosecutors in the case? Now let me talk about that a little bit because you brought it up. The first prosecutor in the case, the first DA was this lady named Jackie Johnson in the Auburn case. She recused herself because she knew the Gregory McMichaels, that's the father. He was a former investigator for the DA's office.
Yeah.
So because she knew him, she felt that she could not adequately be impartial. There's a couple questions that I got to raise in this. So I will start with this one. Do y'all feel that if it's her job to prosecute based off the law, do you feel she should still have a job because she chose to recuse herself because of an association? Your job is to defend the law, not to have, regardless of personal affiliation, your job is to defend the law. Now, before I give y'all a chance to chime in, I'm gonna throw my opinion in there on what I think about it. Because to me, I wanted to be a lawyer at one time. And early on growing up, I wanted to be a lawyer. And here was one of the things, there were a couple factors that turned me away from it. But one of them was, if I was a defendant and I had to defend my, defend my client, and I found out my client was guilty, I couldn't rat them out. I would lose my license. I have to defend them, and in some cases, I do everything that I can to get them off, even if I knew that they were guilty.
Yeah.
So I believe that same concept. So to me, because of that, I believe there should be some form of repercussion that she had and the other prosecutor, uh, Gregory Barnhart. I'm gonna talk about him in a minute because they jumped off the case. They recused themselves. But what are y'all thoughts about them recusing themselves from the case?
I'm partial. The reason being is because you're asking a human to not be biased if they know someone, right? If I, for example, if you were in jail and I was the prosecutor over you, right, the DA, I will feel I can be partial towards you too. I have a relationship with you, and based on that relationship with you, I'm more a common to stand against you doing right, or I will see whatever you did from a more positive light than to be objective in that situation. So I do understand why she will back away from that, from if she knew him, right? I can honestly, as a human, understand that. I mean, we often do the same thing when it comes to jury. If a jury knows someone from the case, they say, hey, you can't be a part of this case, we have to let you go, or we have to pick someone else, because we know that it is just human emotion. If you side with this, that either you're going to be swayed for them to be guilty or non-guilty based on your relationship, right? So I understand it from that standpoint, but I also agree with you that your job is to do your job, and in that situation you should be held to doing that.
Yeah, I agree with the same way. You know, it's like this is gonna be like a tomato type of thing because I actually think it's she has some set of integrity to say this. You know what I'm saying? Because if they would have went to trial and then they would have got off, it would have been brought up. Oh, just because that they had a relationship, that she didn't look at the facts that they got off, right? So I think it does take some type of integrity to know yourself, to know that look, I might be impartial to this, even though this is my job, but this is the right thing for me to do. And I can respect that because, you know, just like I just said, people will be, if they would have got off and she was the judge, you know that people would have been coming after her, but like, you know, these people, it ain't fair. It's, you know, the system is flawed. So I think it's good to have somebody who has no connection, that they can see the facts, that they can see what's really going on and have no feelings involved because, you know, every day we battle with our feelings as, you know, as people, right? I might wake up some days and I might be in my feelings about some things, just like this lady will have with her friend that's being charged with murder. So I get her recusing herself. That's where I stand, brother.
Okay, okay. And you know, I see it from both sides. I do. I agree with both of y'all because there is the double standard that she might have had from the perspective of, you didn't want it to come out later that she did know her and she
Right.
didn't do fully what she was supposed to do. So there are two different sides to it. Um, I just feel like that's one of those. It's a fine line when those type of things occur, and there's a lot of things written in the law about. They use the words like a reasonable person,
Hmm.
and the question remains what a reasonable person is. Now,
Mm.
let me throw this out there before we move on from talking about the double standard. Um, and by all means, those that are listening in, tuning in, I see your comments. Uh, we do want to encourage you to chime in with your comments and share. Lakeisha said right, but she has a job to do.
That's right.
So, we do want you to know that we are listening in. Here is my question regarding double standard. Okay, so you got the recusing yourself, but how about recusing versus snitching? I got to throw that one out there because there is this unwritten code that folks that we don't snitch. You don't snitch on people. Well, isn't that that's a code and that's a double standard. You can see somebody doing wrong and holler about you're not going to say anything. I don't want nothing to do with that. in a way, that's recusing yourself
Mm-hmm.
from that situation. Is that a double standard? Damn, that's a mic drop right
I it is, but you got to also think in those situations why they don't snitch, especially from a ghetto standpoint. A lot of the times, reasons why people don't stand up in the African American community when it comes to snitching is because they still got to stay in that community, and the community frowns. The people around them frown on being told on. So now you're putting your family in jeopardy if I say something concerning crime that happens in my community. The don't snitch policy is invoked by fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know where
there.
you
Okay.
stay,
But
I know where your family stay, and if you say something concerning my case, I'm gonna get my friends, my people, to come where you stay.
mm, oh, you're right. Go ahead, David. I'm gonna comment after you do. Go ahead. I know you're
All right,
ready to
all
jump
right,
in
all
now.
right.
I was thinking the same thing, man. They say, snitches get stitches and end up in ditches. That's the saying that they have, and, and it's if you grow up in poverty, like wrong is wrong, right is right. So I know what's wrong, but when you grow up in poverty, you see these things that people have to do just to get by. You know what I'm saying? Like it's wrong, and you're not saying that it's right. But like you said, you don't fear for your life because you see what they doing, but like they'll have no issues doing something this to your family or doing something this to where you live or some of your friends. So like it all depends your proximity, right? The proximity to where you at. You could say the same thing with crime. The proximity is going to be more a crime in the African American vicinity if it's more black people there. If you go to the suburbs, the crime is going to be more white people there. So it's about the proximity that you in, especially when it comes to snitching. You're going to be on witness protection.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me say it like this. And I'm sorry, I got to play the devil's advocate in this. I was always taught and I grew up, right is right, wrong is wrong. And you can have, just because you have an excuse as to why you chose to do wrong doesn't make wrong okay. And this is what, I'm like, if we're going to take a look at it, let's look at the big picture because the system has an issue. And, in many cases, the flaw is not the, the system or the law. The flaw is us when we go to interpret it and twist it to our benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Like right is right, wrong is wrong, and I get it why people do it. I'm not judging anybody. I just, more than anything else, I want people to have a larger view of what is going on and why it happened. So, and it leads into this next topic. It leads directly into this. But before we jump into that, I want to mention another comment that someone made. Lakeisha said, "That's terrible. Fear will keep people from being truthful.
Yes.
It will keep it. That's what holds us back. You know, people are either scared of what's going to happen as a result of what they're going to do. They're not going to get what they expected out of it, or they're going to be held back from something. That's why people act in fear. That's why they lie. That's why they recuse themselves and everything else, even regardless of what the standard is. Those are the reasons why they do those things. So, yes, I believe there is a double standard, but we got a double standard and they got a double standard
Yeah.
at the end of the day. So let me go. I'm gonna go ahead and let you ask your next question, Damon.
Yes. So
I think this is a good talk.
if y'all don't know, I'm on here with,
Really good. Really, really good.
so they gonna talk a lot. I'm gonna be short, but they gonna talk a lot. So y'all just be ready for that. So our next topic is gonna be right. It's about the lives matter, right? So how do we get people aware that Black Lives Matter and is racism still an issue? I'm gonna pass that to you first.
Ooh, that's a good question. Yul, it's on you. Can you hear
I,
us?
I didn't hear his question. What did he say?
Can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, I think we might be having technical difficulties. Yul, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, he can hear me. I'll repeat the question. I'll state the question for
Mm.
you. He asked, um, "How can we make others see that Black Lives Matter? And is race? Do you feel that racism is still an issue?"
Uh, that's a great question. How do we make others see that Black Lives Matter? Man, I think we have to value our lives to make others value their lives,
Mm.
value our lives as well. Racism absolutely is still current. I mean, we see it in a lot of situations. More importantly than anything, we see them systematically more than we see it visually, right? Like in front of us. We see it in systems. We see it in businesses, and breaking barriers just to get in some doors. We see it from that aspect. But as far as how do we get people to value our lives, I think it starts with us valuing our lives. A lot.
That's
You
good.
you talked earlier about double standards. We do hold a lot of double standards in the African American community because we can downgrade. We can talk about our women. We can degrade our women. We can tell you that we will murder you 465 times in a song. We can tell people over and over how we don't care about our community and what we're going to do throughout plenty of people of what we call stars and rappers, et cetera, et cetera. We can say that over and over and over. Yet we want people to respect us when a lot of times from the outside looking in, they don't see that same respect.
Mm.
That's right. That is absolutely right. Uh, Damon, go ahead.
Yeah, so man, this brought me to a story that I was listening to the other day. I can't remember this guy's name, but it's a black guy. So he's been traveling around the world, right? And he's converting head of the KKKs. So the first guy, he was telling the story how he converted the first guy. This is in Alabama somewhere. This guy was the Grand Wizard, Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, right? And he was a police officer. Let me throw that out there. But he was like, how he got this guy converted was that he told him, he said that every black man has anger in them. They always have, they got this trait, this gene that is make them angry, that they'll go off on people and kill people to any other race, right? So the guy, I think his name was Darius Lewis, I think is his name. So he told him, he was like, so if that's the case, right, all black men got this trait. He was like, I haven't killed anybody, I haven't had that anger issues. So he was like, that gene in you just haven't activated yet, right? So the guy said, okay, I'm gonna throw this at you. So he was like, so if I'm a killer, I got this angry trait in me, then you a serial killer. And then the guy was like, oh, what you mean I'm a serial killer? He was like, well, name me one African American serial killer. So he started naming them like Ted Bundy, David Koresh, all these other people that committed these serial killers and killed these people, and it was all white. So he was like, "How can you tell me that every black man has an anger trait when every white person don't have a serial killer trait?" You know what I'm saying? So he was like, that had to open his eyes until like, oh man, maybe I've been looking at this whole wrong. So we have to change people's perspective, right? So we have to change people's perspective of us and how they see us. That's why us having the integrity in ourselves, treating others like we want to be treated. So like you said, that flip on us, showing that pride in us, walking that kingdom life that we supposed to live, that other people will start seeing like these lives matter.
I agree. I agree with both of your answers. Um, and I believe, and basically, I'm going to reiterate what the two of you said. I believe the answer to this question has two faces. Black lives have to matter to blacks first.
Hmm.
They gotta matter to us. We can't expect other people to care more about us than we care about us. You know, and it's not about teaching other races that Black lives matter, but teaching them that lives matter. Period. Our issue is it's yes, there's the black and the white issue, but a life is a life. It boils down to respect and value. That always begins at home. Racism is a learned behavior. Is racism still an issue? And it's going to always be an issue as long as prejudice exists.
Hmm.
Racism will never go away. Prejudice is a preconceived opinion that is not based off of reason or actual experience. So I can actually pick it up from somebody else. And we talk a lot about, uh, you know, white people not liking, or Caucasians not liking African Americans. But we also have a preconceived because we've been told, hey, they don't like us. They treat us like this. So we turn around and we immediately treat them like this. Even if it's not anything that they did. Now, don't get me wrong, it's taught on both sides. So it's on both ends that it has to be addressed. I believe this is what, you know, this is a learned behavior. And the thing about learned behavior is anything that's learned can be unlearned and something new can be learned.
Let me ask this question.
Times have, yeah,
To what you just said, from the African American community, is that necessarily a defense mechanism? I say that the reason why I say that is because of this. The I think we all were taught in the African American community, don't fool, don't go to some part. We were told not to go some parts of Louisiana, right? We were told,
correct.
hey, if you go to this part of Louisiana, you may have a difficult time based on there be white people, KKK live there. Don't fool with this state. Is that I use that as an example simply to say, is that are we taught this the way we're taught from a defense mechanism standpoint, like to protect yourself? When I first was in Texas, the first place they told me not to stop to get gas was Vita. I've never been to Vita, but I knew if I go to Vita, I heard all of the racial things they do in Vita, so I was always informed. You better get some gas before you go to Vita, Texas. So I'm saying that to say this: is it from an African American standpoint? Are we being taught from a defense standpoint to protect ourselves? And is that right?
I agree with you. Um, yeah, it is a defense mechanism because, there's what I call it's a reactive system that's inside of us. That if I were to throw something at you, you would not just look at it coming at you. Your defense mechanisms would automatically come up to block. You would move. You would do whatever you need to do to get out of the way. And unfortunately, when we have been so accustomed to being treated, talked to, or we witnessed people being treated, talked to a certain kind of way. That yeah, now we walk around we, we see a police officer and we immediately go in defense mode. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, unfortunately, it's not every police officer. It's not every, race of person, but at the same time, it's a larger number on their end than it is on the other end. There's a larger number of people doing wrong than it is people that are speaking out doing right. And it's not that it's not a larger number of people doing right, they're just not saying anything.
Yeah.
We have to get to a place where we're willing to open our mouths and talk about it because that's the only way that these kind of things are gonna change. I'm looking up. There was an article. I'm gonna come to it. I'm gonna talk about it as soon as Damon you comment. But there was an article I want to talk about.
But yeah, man, it's definitely a defense mechanism. I remember, well, this is when we was in when it was in the guard. So when we're in the guard, when they have national disasters, they got hurricanes, power outage. That's when they call us up and we'll go to these certain areas, right? And some people are out of power. We got to clear routes where people can get first responders can get through and get to people. So we was in a small town, Louisiana. Man, I don't remember the name. I think it was like Oak. I think it was like Oak Grove was the name of it, right? So I'm walking to a convenience store to get something to drink. Me and another guy with me, and this white lady stopped us, Caucasian. However you want to be correct in this area. She stopped us and she was like, "Yeah, I see you in your uniform, but you need to know where you're at. You're in Oak Grove, Louisiana. You know what I'm saying?" So I got my full uniform on. I'm like, "You really? This is what we're talking about?" Like, I'm walking to the convenience store. I'm in this community helping your people, helping people in this community, and you telling me that I need to watch where I'm at. You know, and that just brought to my the case that is still out there and it's still prevalent. But yeah, we have to recognize where we at, what proximity we in, and we use that as a defense mechanism. So I agree with that statement that it is a defense mechanism because you have to let people know these things, especially the next generation. You have to, you know, tell these things to your kids. They don't know anything about racism right now, but we have to instill in them about the prejudice that we're going to get just because of our skin color.
That's right. Look, the article that I was looking at that was forwarded to me earlier today was in Oklahoma City. There was a delivery driver by the name of Travis Miller who went to deliver. He was doing his job. He was a home appliance and furniture delivery guy. He delivered some furniture into this gated community, and he had finished his work. On his way out, he got stopped by what was the from my understanding is the members of the homeowners association. The president of the homeowners association pulled up in front of his truck. That honestly, he was a big old truck. He could have ran him over, and pulled up in front of him and refused to leave, asking him where he came from, what he's doing in a gated community. How did he get in? And then another vehicle pulled in behind him and blocked him behind him. And they, continued to ask him questions. And he was just like, I mean, I'm just making a delivery. No, I don't. He didn't want to disclose his client's information because that's not their right to know. Like at what point do we have to draw a line? Because who gives them the right to feel like they are better than everybody else? And I'm not just going to say better than us, but what gives them the right to, and this is the same question that I have a lot of friends that are police officers. I have the utmost respect for them. I'm a veteran, just like Damon. We've served our country, but at the same time, that didn't make us better than other people. And we are there to serve. And when you're serving somebody, that does not give you the level of power to feel like you can do whatever you want to
Mm.
people. At some given point, we got to draw some lines. That's my feel on that.
So that brings me to another question. So do we really care about each other as a human race?
That's the question.
I mean,
That's the question. I'm gonna let you
I don't know
start
if
off with
you heard
that
me
one.
or not.
I couldn't hear. What was the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. He said, "Do we really care about each other as humans,
Wow.
as a race of people?"
I think that's usually an individual, like self has to ask that question. Because I think you hit it on the head earlier, Jeremy, when you said that we learn prejudice. We learn things about other races without even interaction with that race. So
Hmm.
you got to make a conscious decision as an individual to say that, hey, I'm gonna have to remove the prejudice I've learned about a specific race to know individuals, right? Because what will happen is that you can live your whole life based on a prejudice as opposed to learning an individual and understanding there's more similarities than there are differences. And a lot of times we don't try to do that. We have momo, pawpaw, grandmother, cousin, uncle, dad, and even mom tell us how we should think and feel about people we never even encountered. And a lot of times we get stereotypes about those individuals without even a real honest conversation. I learned to have conversation with people I uncomfortable with. I'm talking about the Karens. I'm talking about the blonde hair ladies that are 50-year-old that have a different mindset than I do. And I understand a lot of what they tell me based on just having conversations with them. If you never learn to have
Yeah.
conversations with them and understand that hey, they have some of the same fears, anxieties, uh, discord that we have, we can break barriers that way. But unless we learn to remove the prejudice and have those conversations, we're going to stay stuck in the muck, for lack of better words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Damon?
Yeah, I think, oh man, when it comes to caring about each other, I think it, like he said, it's all about the self, right? So if you call yourself a Christian or a follower of Jesus, you need to have compassion for other people, plain and simple. Um, if I can't show my brothers and sisters, no matter what color they are, if I can't show them compassion, I can't show them love, I can't give them grace, then I really can't call myself a Christian. I can't call myself a follower of Jesus because that's what he did, right? So with me is I have to extend that grace to other people, just like Jesus extended that grace to me.
I agree with you. You know, one of my comments, I'm also, uh, you know, I started a watch party. One of the people in my watch party made the comment, Katasha Bird says, my grandmother always say, a person's character is not attached to their color.
That's
Mm.
That's
good.
the part that we have to, you know, I agree with her wholeheartedly, and thank you for sharing that. Um, we have got to get to the place where we stop attaching stuff to the color of our to the color of people's skin,
Yeah.
and uh, and that has to do with us being vigilant. To we have to recognize and identify before we can apply anything. We got to recognize that we see stuff and the thoughts that come in our mind. That person is here to do me something. I mean, I can't tell you the number of places I've been in and I've seen the people cringe up when I walk in or they're
Mm.
looking at me side eye. You know, I'm a 6'5", over 300 pound black guy. But you know what? Like I mean, I've never committed a felony. You know, I've never, you know, certain things I've never done, and I don't have any intent on doing. And I, you know, as Martin Luther King said, we got to get to the place, and it's a conscious choice that we are judged by the content of our character, not by our skin tone.
Hmm.
And we're not there yet, and it makes you, you know, do you really care about people? Or are you? If you don't, then that means you're selfish. I'm gonna call
Mm.
it what it is. Even if you don't care about people, period, you only care about certain people, that still makes you selfish, regardless of what color it is. And I like the comment that somebody that I saw somebody make again, Lakeisha, she made. She said, "We do it in the African American community. They got some African Americans that we don't like." Now,
Absolutely.
here's the truth. Here's the truth. They got some that know I don't want to break bread with. I don't want to be around you. But you know what? There's a difference between I don't have to like you to respect you. I gotta. There has to be a level of respect as a person, and this is a conversation that we need to honestly. I think we need to have a bigger discussion than even just this one,
Mm.
because this is something that little boys and little girls we have to change the next generation's thought process. Unfortunately, they got some people that stuck in their ways, and this is just where they are. But we got to start to turn the tide. If we're going to care about people, then let's care about all people. It's not, yeah, Black Lives Matter, but all lives matter. Because, you know, I'm a believer. And I believe Jesus didn't just come for the white people or
Hmm.
come for the black ones. He came for people. He said, go out and tell everybody. So that is, everybody is inclusive of anybody, regardless of what their skin tone is. I'm sorry, I'm not preaching, but I just had to get that out. I think we got one more question. We got one
uh,
more question we gonna have. I think.
yeah, we got one more.
Yeah, we do have another question.
I told them
So
though that y'all was some preachers where y'all gonna be talking. They know.
Look, look, and to wrap it up, the question is, how can we make a change in our community?
Mm.
Based off of everything that has transpired, everything that has gone on, what can we do now? Like right here, right now, moving forward, what can we do? I'm gonna throw that at y'all. I'll round it out. You the guest. You got it.
I think the change we can make is initially starts with us trying to better ourselves. That's how you initially make a change because I can't change anything if I haven't changed. So
Mm.
I have to be intentional
Mm,
about changing and bettering myself. Being the example I want to be, right? Or I want to see is the better term. Being the example I want to see every day. Being a husband I need to be. Being a father I need to be. Not only being selfish, as you stated, about my family, but understanding that it takes a village. So extending myself in my community to children, to parents that may need help, etc., etc. So in order to be make our community better, we have to be better. I have to intentionally say every day, I'm gonna be better, and that becomes contagious. Because once someone sees different, then they begin to say they may be interested in that. Let's take it to a biblical standpoint, right? We are called to be a light.
that's right.
We are called to be a city on the hill, right? So people will pass by and see that city and say, hey, I want to go there. And that's the same motivation we need concerning our community. We have to be the light, we have to be that city on the hill that draws people to it.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's good.
That's right.
That's good. But I do think it start with us also. A lot of things in the African American community that happened in the past, like past generations, people never spoke on. So you might have, like molestations, you might have had drug addicts and things like that that our grandparents and parents never spoke on. So we got those things that's in our family that still traumatizing us as we grow older, right? So I think we need to have those conversations, especially with our parents and grandparents, about the things that happened in the past, some of their struggles, for we can know not to struggle with those things also, right? Uh, Secondly, I can instill some good values into my children so the next generation will be good. But for our generation, what we need to do now is like the people that are in office, the people who are actually running to make a change in our communities, we need to back these people. We need to find out what their agendas are, or they're for us, or they're not for us. And we need to get more of those people in office, and we need to actually get out and vote to make the change, right? So I think those are bigger ways that we could change the community is learning from the past, learn from past mistakes, and we can teach that to our children so they can not make those same mistakes that we made in the present. Get out there and vote with people who actually can affect our community and impact it in a better way.
Man, that is good. That's real good. Um, I'm gonna start off with kind of bouncing off of what you said. Yes, we do need to talk to our grandparents, the older generation, to hear the things that they've experienced. And but here's the caveat to that, because in many cases that's what we've been doing. But when you experience something, you take one or two things from it. You either take lessons or you take bitterness
That's
from
good.
an experience. And in many cases, we've been taking from, we go and ask them about what they've gone through, and they tell us, well, the white man this and these people this, and we take from that instead of a lesson to better
We take the
us,
bitterness.
we took the bitterness.
Yeah,
That's good, man.
So now when we face other people, now we confront them we're walking in bitterness. We're walking around as soon as we see them. And how do you know if you have bitterness? If the very presence of somebody, talking to them, walking in a room, coming around them, if their very presence causes your whole energy to shift or to change or to become something else, then that means, guess what? You've given them too much power over you. I know we lost Yule for a moment, but I think I'll get him back in as soon as he chimes back. So that will be the first thing, that the lessons. And look, here's the other one. I believe we're the only species on the planet, on the earth, that after we commit a mistake, we are still held to the account of that on that mistake.
Mm-hmm.
We keep being held to the on the account for that mistake. Thank you for getting back with us, Jules. We're still held. We commit, an animal makes a mistake, it moves on. It's not constantly, we got this thing called a memory, but that memory was supposed to be a blessing. But unfortunately, we let it be a curse. Somebody makes a mistake, we'll hold them for that. We'll hold them accountable to that mistake for the rest of their life.
Mm.
Like they can't grow past it. They can't become a better person. We feel like there are some things that I'm sorry, you can never get past that. You can never be better than that. You can never grow from that. Like that's a mindset that has to be changed, that has to be shifted. So that's the second thing. And then the other thing is we have to stop expecting problems to solve themselves.
Yeah.
If we really want to change our community, we got to stop expecting it to solve themselves and for other people to do the work for us. Because
That's
so
good.
much we sit back and we want other people to do it and we don't do anything. I remember Miles Monroe making the statement of saying one of the worst things that happened to the church were miracles because the church felt like they don't have to work no more.
Yeah.
They don't have to do anything. We feel like we vote these people in the office and we don't have to do nothing else. Once we get them in the office, like that's just it. They're gonna solve all of our problems. Many people thought President Obama was gonna solve all the problems with racism because he got voted to be president. Well, I'm sorry. Hello, we still got issues. We had him when he was in office, and we got issues now that he's not in office. I
Yeah.
heard last night Brother Eugene Collins make this statement on a broadcast that he said. He said, we vote people into office that we wouldn't hire.
That's good,
It
man.
was profound. We put some people into these positions and we expect certain things from them that honestly they can't produce. Or they in office for so long. I was talking about this one earlier. We got some people that's been in certain offices for 30 years, and it's a good old boy system. They not in it for the people no more. They in it to make money.
Yeah.
And that's just it. They in it for their own personal gain. I think that the whole system needs to be reevaluated and relooked at. Because at the end of the day, we are our own worst enemy.
That's good.
We're our own worst enemy. So I'm gonna drop it with that because I know we this has been time well spent. I enjoyed this talk.
Really good, man.
It's been real good, man. We're gonna go ahead and close that thing out because I think we're about going towards an hour. But before we leave, right, we do our t-shirt challenge of the day. I'll start off with my t-shirt. It's actually a rocket ship going into
We
the,
didn't tell you.
and it says no limits, right? So it's part of my cousin's legacy company, but it's just showing that you have no limits on your life, that you can inspire to whatever you want to be, to keep pushing, don't put boundaries on yourself. So what you think of yourself is what you can achieve. That's my shirt for the day. What you got?
That's that's what's up. That's what's up. Yul, I see you got a shirt on. I don't know if you were prepared for the shirt challenge, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna toss that over to you. What you got?
I appreciate you. No, I wasn't. Like Damon told me like minutes before, but I already had something on. Right now, what you're seeing is Cast Out Two Kings shirt and a shameless plug. That's an album me and Pastor Mike Carter put together in 2018. It's a very incredible album. If you have not heard it, you can go to Spotify, you can go to YouTube, you can even go to Apple Music, Google for my Android lovers, Damon, and just download
Hey,
the
hey,
album. It's Cast Out Two Kings is the name of the album.
okay, that's what's up. And look, mine is simply respect. Mine simply says respect. This is by The Rock, and it was been my theme that right now we got to get down to respect. And respect starts with yourself. It starts with who you are. And do we have a Stitch challenge? I think we have a Stitches challenge. Did you come up with the Stitch challenge? I
Man,
was thinking of some things.
I was just thinking just now. I was like, we have talked about so much stuff today. I don't know what what would be a good challenge. What do you have in mind?
I got you. What did you get out of today's show?
Mm.
If you got anything out of today's show, uh, post it. Hashtag the SIP show.
Mm-hmm.
Hashtag the SIP show, the S.I.P show. So look, uh, we talked about a lot today, and I'm gonna give you guys an opportunity to give any closing remarks, and then we're gonna go ahead and wrap this thing up. You,
Yes,
you've been our guest today. What closing remarks do you have?
man, that's a great one. My closing remarks is to I think we hit so many topics, but I think the greatest thing that I got out of all what we said was, as an individual, we have to learn to break boundaries simply by communicating,
Mm-hmm.
communicating,
That's right.
realizing that there's a lot of things that we share in common with each other, even though it may not be our ethnicity. It's still things that make us human that we share with each other. If we just break the boundaries of communication and remove the prejudice that we may have for a different race or a different ethnicity based on what our family has informed us, and be intentional about learning who that person is individually, that we can grow.
Yeah, that's
That's
good,
good.
man. Like like I said earlier, it's about changing the perspective, right? We have to change the perspective on each other. Um, we have to go back to. I remember the military had 7 core values. You remember them core values, boy?
Oh, do not quote me on there.
But
That was some years ago.
I don't remember them all either. But I remember it was honor. They had integrity and they had selfless service. So we can continue to do those 3 things each and every day. That we can continue to break the mold of stereotypes. If you hold yourself to a certain amount of integrity, you have honor and you have selfless service.
That's right. That's right. All of those things are important. Look, um, today's show was dedicated to uh, the Alton Sterling, the Philando Castile, the Freddie Gray, the Oscar Grant, and now the Ahmaud Arbery, and the countless others that have lost their lives, and you know, because of negligence, because of prejudice, because of just wrongdoing, human error. We have a lot of moments,
Mm.
but I don't feel we have a lot of movements.
Hmm.
And let me just say this. You know, we've marched, and they say, well, we march, but we don't have movements. Well, we have a lot of moments, but we don't have a lot of movements. Because see, if I knew you were only going to be upset for a moment. All I got to do is wait you out.
Hmm.
And
That's good.
unfortunately, I believe a lot of reasons why things haven't changed has been because people have just waited us out.
Mm.
A movement is I'm gonna stay this way until something moves, or still something changes. You know, those names that I mentioned, and even the ones that I didn't, their deaths offends the fundamental principles of justice, every notion of dignity, and the idea that is through the threads that make our country what it is and makes us connected to one another. As human beings, we are responsible for each other at the end of the day. As humans, we are responsible. Their deaths means that we must work not just in the moment of justice, but in the form of a movement until, as Martin Luther King said, justice rolls down like water and
Mm.
righteousness like a mighty stream. We have to get to that place. And until we get to that place in our society, we will continue to see things like what transpired before continue to happen. Yul, we appreciate you so much for joining us today. Man, this
You.
was an awesome show. I know we went longer than what we normally go, but
I'm
man,
honored, man.
this topic was needed.
Yeah.
This topic was needed. And look, we're gonna have to invite you back again, bro. This was good.
Anytime, man. It's an honor, bro. I appreciate y'all. Just to chop it up with great men, man. It's always a privilege.
Appreciate you. Uh, well, that's the end of our live session. Thanks all of you for joining. Look, May is Mental Health Month, as many of you know. And next week, look, I'm excited about next week. We have an international guest that's going to be on the show live. She's going to be live from Indonesia. And I can't wait to hear more about her story. Man, about women empowerment, female empowerment, and mental health. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss it. That's all that I have. I'm going to kick it over to you to close us out.
Like you said, this was time well spent. I, appreciate everybody who took the time to watch this show, to make watch parties for us, to keep this conversation going. Let us know what you got out of it with the SIP show, or hashtag SIP show, that we can know what you got out of this conversation that we had today. And man, this was good. I really appreciate the different mindsets that we had, and the conversations and the dialogue we had. This was real good, real important for us to have this discussion. But that's all I have, man. I can't wait till next week.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. This was another awesome conversation. But more importantly, we were excited about the fact that you were a part of it. So even if you're catching the replay, we always go back and check out our comments and information from before. So make sure you leave your comments in the comment section. Follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and of course, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel to know where we'll be at next, when we'll be in a city near you, and also when we'll have another episode that you can be part of the conversation. Remember, this is the place where conversations matter.